gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave?
By the way I use my walk, I'm a woman's man, no time to talk. Music loud, women walk, being kicked around since I was born. I never tolerate, I don't hate, and you may look me out the way, but we can't try to understand. The New York Times are making no man. When you're moving away, you're lucky staying alive, staying alive. Feel the city breaking and everybody shaking, staying alive, staying alive. Staying alive, staying alive.
This is Obama. Hey, Obama. It's me, Kamala. Oh, gosh, it's Kamala. Hello? Hi, Hillary. It's Kamala. I think you have the wrong number.
The number you dialed is not in service.
Hello? Nancy? It's Kamala. Hang on. I'm getting another call. Hello? Hey, Putin. It's me, Kamala. Hello. How are you doing? Not good. I lost. Psych. This is my voicemail. Leave me a message after the tone.
The number you dialed is not in service.
Hello? Hey, Zelensky, it's me, Kamala. Can I call you back? I'm on the phone with Trump. Yeah, I guess.
The number you dialed is not in service.
Hello? Hey, Liz. It's Kamala. There's no Liz here. Sorry. Liz?
The number you dialed is not in service.
Hello? Hey, Joe. I didn't do it. You, bitch. Joe, I won't
The
come
number you
home.
dialed is not in service.
This is Trump. Who's this? Trump. It's Kamala. What's that? I give up.
I love it. I love it. I'm gloating. I don't care. I don't care. I'm not being humble at all. I'm gloating because I'm a piece of garbage Nazi fascist, according to these people. I don't want any forgiveness, Joe Resinello. I don't want any, let's unify the country. You wrecked the country, Obama. You wrecked the country, Joe Biden. You wrecked the country, Kamala Harris. You divided the country by drawing a line. It's men against women. It's black against white. It's Hispanic against European. Whatever lines they want to draw. You divided the country. I want them ground into dust, figuratively speaking. Well, no, not figuratively speaking. Politically speaking, I want them ground into dust as you're joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello. Donald Trump's the 47th president of the United States. We freaking love it, and we're going into the breach. Thursday night, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Joe Resinello, I'm not wrong. I don't want anybody to die. You know that. We do not propose violence. Politically speaking, keep his freaking word. He better keep his word. He better not get killed, as you have said. And we don't know what's going to happen. Dan Bongino, many people are fearful for his life, okay? Assuming he takes the presidency and he's got the House and he's got the Senate, he's got the governors, he's got the state legislatures, okay? If America doesn't change for the better on some levels, plural levels, then I may never vote again. But right now, today, here at the front line with Joe and Joe, I'm gloating. I'm happy. I feel more satisfied with this election than I've had in any election in my lifetime. Joe Resinello.
A lot to talk about. Obviously, this outcome was an indictment against their platform. People were fed up. And here's the interesting thing. 2 issues sunk them. 2, inflation and immigration. I saw an interview today. It was a former Obama advisor, obviously still involved in the Democratic machine. And he's completely in denial that the economy is the way it is. And that's exactly why they lost. You're not going to tell a person who can't afford food that they can. And that's exactly what Don Lemon did when he went on the boardwalk of Atlantic City, if you
Yeah.
remember that. He was talking to people basically saying, why, who are you going to vote for? Donald Trump. Why? Person looks him square in the face. I can't afford food, inflation. And Don Lemon, who makes millions of dollars a year when he was with CNN, says there is no inflation.
Right.
That's exactly why they lost.
Right.
They still don't want to come to terms with that. And what I say is this, that is a big mistake. Doubling down on your mistakes in life, whether it's in politics or it's in anything for that matter, means you will repeat them and this you will have the same outcome. They have to change, they have to figure it out, but sadly, they've doubled down. Her concession speech was speaking to her base, giving
And
them
not the
red
country.
meat.
Not the country.
100%. And the country is not interested in what they're selling, and they're not convinced of it. And frankly, that's good for America because that means they will continue to lose until it sinks into their head.
Well, it might not. Remember, we're not going to still be just because they're striking a conciliatory tone. Not that they are, but some people are being, yes, maybe we should back away from the wokeness and everything. They're realizing what you've said for over a year now, which is now you're talking about people's families. Let's say if you want to talk about transgenderism and boys and men and women's sports and all that stuff. You've been saying that for a long time. That's a bread and butter kitchen table issue. If you get a guy who's traditionally voted Democrat and Kamala Harris is saying that a boy could be in his daughter's locker room, that guy's going to, so they're starting to back off that a little bit. But there is nothing humble about these people. Nothing whatsoever. They don't think anything's wrong. Tulsi Gabbard's a Democrat. Elon Musk is not a conservative Republican. RFK Jr. comes from a family of Democrats who, by the way, his Desgraciad family stabbed him right in the back. If they were smart, Joe, just to digress for a second, if they really were the smartest people in the room, as they always try to tell us they are, they're also smart. Okay, they would have nominated RFK Jr. and RFK Jr. would be president today. If you want,
Doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. You're right.
but he's gonna shake up the same way they distrust Trump when it comes to the deep state and things he might do. You got RFK Jr. there. Trump's gonna say, "Go get him, Bobby." FDA, in other words, NIH, whatever the case might be, start to drop the hammer on a big pharma, big agra, the things that are killing us. Okay, break their lobbying power, all these things. Okay, so I'm glad the Democrats are not smart. I don't agree with Bobby Kennedy on a lot of things, but Bobby Kennedy's nowhere near the abortion issue. So as far as that's concerned, I agree with Bobby Kennedy on big agra and big pharma. Go get him, Bobby. Go get him.
Well, I'll tell you what, I believe this was the most interesting, possibly the most diverse coalition ever in American politics. And what it shows is how to win. We have to realize that we have more things in common than we don't have in common. And if we want to win as a nation, we have to center in on what we have in common. And then we have to have debate in a system that works. The system has been taken away from the people. Hopefully, they can give it back, at least a piece of it. It's a beginning because the system belongs to an oligarchy. You don't believe me? I got news for you. You're soon going to believe me because the middle class is disappearing. Very soon, regular people will not be able to afford homes. There was a time when simple people, non-educated people afforded homes in America. That is slipping away every single year. There's large swaths of this country that are living below the poverty line.
Yeah.
And it's only going to continue because there has been an institutional power grab. The institutions control the government, and the institutions are not for the people. And that is how you beat the institution. And they proved it. And people have to figure that out. I've been saying that for quite some time. And I got news for you. If Bobby Kennedy did not join Trump, Trump may not have won.
I think you're breaking. No, are you? Can
He
you hear me?
probably
Okay,
wouldn't
Joe.
have won. Yes, yeah. No, yeah, I got it, but he probably wouldn't have won. So,
Well,
like,
here's the
it's
thing. Here's what we got to hope for, and I want your comments on this, Joe Rossinello at the front line with Joe and Joe. Please, wherever you're watching this video, we really need your help. Okay, we know Joe and I both are. We're not stupid men. We know that we're not getting the exposure that we're supposed to be getting, particularly on Facebook and YouTube. Okay, X we've kind of stalled a little bit. We need you to share our videos to hit that algorithm. That's all we ask you for is just hit a repost, hit a share, YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, all of it. Help us out a little bit. Joe, here's what you got to hope for. And this is what I believe is going to happen. I truly do. The Republican establishment is going to have no say in Trump's cabinet whatsoever. Not a say. That means he's going to put not Betsy DeVos as the head of the Department of Education. He's going to put somebody at the head of the Department of Education to wreck it, which is what needs to happen. The FDA, if it's Bobby Kennedy, let's say, I forgot the gentleman's name. He's an organic farmer, I believe. He knows a lot about farming. They want to put him in there. That's really got the deep state's brains exploding. Okay, and Big Agra's brains exploding because this guy has been talking. Evidently, I forgot his name. He's been talking about it for years about all the farming system and how it's corrupted by big corporations. Trump's not going to be duped. I believe he's not going to be duped by the Republican establishment. Say, oh, let John Bolton be your Secretary of State. No. Let Mike Pompeo be your head of the CIA. No. We want people that are going to be reformers or wreckers that are going to take charge of these federal agencies. I prefer the wrecker. You're not going to be able to get rid of some of these agencies, so you're going to have major reform. But the Department of Education is a great place to start, Joe Rossinello.
there's a lot of things that need to be fixed, particularly the election system, and we're going to talk about that later in the show. That needs to be reformed. Absolutely. And we're very, very blessed that the election was a landslide. He won the popular vote as well as the electoral college, because if it was close, there's a very strong possibility that he would not have won and we would have had the same outcome as we did the last time. That's how the election laws were structured, and the election laws have to change. That's the first thing that has to happen. We cannot go on like this. It's election day. It's not election month. We
Right.
have to fix the election system.
Can I give you an example of where I got a little bit scared the other night on election night? Minnesota said they were going to stop counting. And I immediately said to my wife, here we go. Why are you stopping counting? There's no need to stop counting. You continue to count. They said they were going to stop counting. Now, I was watching both Bannon, Real America's Voice, and I was flipping back and forth between Fox and Bannon, mostly on Bannon. Minnesota said they were going to stop the count. Not long after that, Pennsylvania was called for Trump. 5 minutes later, Minnesota came out and they called Minnesota for Harris. What happened? I thought you needed to continue to count. What happened there? Why did you stop counting? Because they were prepared, like you said. Joe, if it wasn't a landslide, I think they were overwhelmed. I did a video, I posted it on X. Make it too big to rig. I think the people of America, particularly black men, Hispanic men, white women, 59% for Trump, okay? And they're all being called Nazis and fascists today and stupid. Of course, they're being called stupid, and everybody's crying in the coffee on the left, okay? But the fact is, they did. Those groups and people like us, Catholics supported Trump, 55, I think 56%. We came out and we made it too big to rig. They couldn't do it. They couldn't overwhelm the system.
Kamala Harris, and I'm speaking objectively, was absolutely positively one of the worst, if not the worst, presidential candidates in my lifetime, without a question, possibly historically speaking. She had no skills whatsoever. She did not tell the people her policies. Whoever eyeballed her and put her in this position, that person, I'll be truthful with you, has no clue what they're doing. She was a horrendous candidate. And frankly, the people saw through it. And you know something? It gave me some confidence in the people. I could remember a little while ago, a friend of mine who's a lawyer in town, very level-headed guy, good man as well. We were chatting about it, and he wasn't speaking in like an obnoxious tone or even a condescending one. He's like, Joe, like, I'm starting to like lose hope in people. Like this was so transparent what was going on. You didn't have to be a political wonk, an academic. It was so transparent what was going on over the last 4 years, yet hordes of people, hordes still voted for her.
Right.
Like Joe, voting against your self-interest. I
Joe,
don't want to,
they think it is in their interest.
Joe, but it's not. And this is the
We know
thing.
that it's not.
I
Joe,
mean, and I'm not
listen,
trying to sound like a jerk or talk down to people or think I'm smarter. It's the thing is, it's not.
Joe,
It's
let me give you an example real quick, and I want your comments. I'm going to throw it right back to you. I heard it personally. I heard it personally at work, and I'm hearing it all over X. Okay, I've been focusing all my efforts in with art shows. Okay, and I hear it all over the place. Fathers who said they're voting for Kamala because they want to protect abortion for their daughters. Now that man, and I heard this from right out of somebody's mouth. Okay, said this at work. And Lila Rose and many, Father Imperato, I believe, said the same thing. It's like, you want to protect your right. You're going to vote for Kamala against your own interest because you think it's in your interest for your daughter to be able to kill your grandchild. That's the truth of the matter. Now, that guy, Joe, I'm sorry. I am going to talk down a little bit. I'm going to say to that guy, are you stupid or are you evil? I don't think you're evil, but are you
here's the thing.
stupid?
Here's the thing. This is the sick part about that guy. We're not going to convince him of anything. That's number one. We're not going to argue him into being pro-life. And let me be very clear. I am pro-life all the way, 100%. I have 5 kids. I've lost 3 children. So we had 8 kids in my family. So just so you know, like I am all in. With that said, Donald Trump is pro-choice. You see, what makes that person even more deranged is he's not even grasping Trump's position. He's believing the propaganda. That's what makes that guy ultimately it's sad, Joe.
Right.
Because Trump is saying, I am not prohibiting abortion. I'm allowing states to have it. And if your daughter, sir, and I don't advise this, wants to have an abortion in America, she can.
Right.
So that man is not listening to the facts. And to be honest with you, you can't convince that person of anything. The
No.
only way we're going to convince, I'm telling you this right now, I'm fully convinced of it. And I've heard Tucker Carlson say this. I'm just putting it from a religious perspective. We are never going to convince pro-choice people to be pro-life with words or arguments. There is no person on the earth who can do it. There is only one way to do it, is to be saints. Because what a saint does is it puts a mirror up against a person and they see themselves as they actually are. That is something many people talk about this from a religious perspective, and I'm not going to go too far on a tangent. Before Christ returns, there will be something called an illumination of conscience. It's God's last hand to humanity. And what that is he's going to allow the human race to see itself as it truly is and as God sees it, in the hope that you will reform. Now, what does a saint do to a person like that? It puts a mirror in front of them. And if we want to convince people that life is the way to go, we have to be a holy people. I'm telling you right now, there is no other way it's going to happen. You're not going to argue it. You're not going to tell that guy anything. He doesn't even have his facts right with Trump.
I think all we could do, and then I want to play you something. I think all we could do on the abortion front is to keep fighting the political battle. I agree with you. Political battles on the state level, and keep praying in front of the abortion clinics. Keep trying to save one baby at a time. In Argent, Joe, I'm firmly convinced after this election, we'll be long gone before abortion is finally finished in America. You and I, perhaps our kids' generation, we'll do something raising our kids properly. But you talked about a mirror. You talk about the mirror that the saints hold up. Well, here's a little mirror holding over at CNN, and I want our audience and I want your comments on this.
Look, he has an opportunity here to try to unite the country after a huge victory. And this is a mandate. He's won the national popular vote for the first time for a Republican, for the first time since 2004. This is a big deal. This isn't backing into the office. This is a mandate to do what you said you were going to do. Get the economy working again for regular working class Americans, fix immigration, try to get crime under control, try to reduce the chaos in the world. This is a mandate from the American people to do that. I think I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids, and they feel like they have been told to just shut up.
Let's leave it there. It's a longer clip. I encourage everybody to go watch it. I want to say this, and then I'm going to throw it right to you, Joe Rossinello. Scott Jennings was talking to the people in that room. He was talking to David Axelrod and Van Jones, who not long after Scott Jennings' reflection on the election that you just saw a portion of, David Axelrod called us racist again. And Van Jones called us racist again. So do you see what you're dealing with here? Van Jones, by the way, is even more disgraziato because I believe Trump when he tells that story that Van Jones cried and begged him in the Oval Office for criminal justice reform. And Trump called 4 senators, and they all said, I'm going to do whatever you say because you helped me get elected. And Van Jones, Judas Brutus Cassius that he is, sticks the knife in Donald Trump and so calls him a racist. Scott Jennings is spot on, but he's talking to the 2 guys that are sitting right there because they're never, ever, ever going to drop this narrative. And you know what that means, Joe? And I want your comments. Tell me if you agree. That means they're going to continue to lose because you
People aren't buying it.
kick us in the
I
face
would agree.
all the time.
People are not buying it. But here's the problem. That's all they have. You see, they had nothing. They had nothing. That's why she didn't convey a policy, because her policies were anti-we the people. She knew that. She knew that if she spoke what she was going to do, full frontal cultural communism. Full frontal cultural communism. Joe Biden was at least wrapping paper. That's how Joe Biden supposedly won. Joe Biden, they wrapped their policies around Joe Biden. They took away that. They were too emboldened, but she knew she couldn't say what she wanted to do. So she didn't. And the undecided people weren't having it. People wanted to hear what she had to say, and she wouldn't do it because she knew it would not resonate with the people. These people, this regime, does not believe in the American ideal. Barack Obama said it very clearly. We are changing the way America works. That is the goal. And they almost did it. They came this close. And if we allow ourselves to come in or be in this situation again, we have no one to blame but ourselves.
There's only one way you could be in this situation again. Only one way. Everybody out there, Joe Rossinello, if you're just joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello, we're way in the breach. We're a little reflecting on the election, throwing on our Jersey attitude into this whole thing, which is just fine. Our opinions, our analysis, if you will. But you know us, this is kitchen table politics. We're just talking because we are just 2 regular guys, just like you all are regular men and women. That's why you listen to our show. And we got a few more clips for you. But before then, Joe, here's the thing. You hear a lot of people, Joe Rossinello, you hear a lot of people talk about what's the first thing Trump's going to do? What's the first thing? The first thing, and I've been a little all over the place, but I've settled on the very first thing that he's got to do. It's got to be federal legislation, voter ID required, no more paper ballots, no non-citizens vote. That's the first thing you have to do. That means that you have to send the Federal Election Commission and any amount of agents that are needed to go into California, to go into New York, to go into New Jersey, which, by the way, had a much better showing this time around. New Jersey for Trump, okay, for Republicans in general. New Jersey. You have to go into these states. You have to clean up their voter rolls. You have to take illegals off their ID, because what they do at the local level, Joe, does affect the nation. Trump needs to do that first, then abolish the Department of Education and the rest. I'm going to give you a quick comment because then we got to go to Steve Bannon.
Absolutely. It's very simple. Mail-in ballots, that is the exception, not the rule. You show up, you vote in one day, you show ID, no electronic, no computer printouts, no Dominion electric machines, paper ballots, counted, police on the spot to make sure everyone's safe, cameras, and if you get caught cheating, you go to jail.
Go to jail. Go
That's the
directly to
fix.
jail. Don't
That is the
collect
fix.
$200.
And if we do that, as Ron DeSantis did, Ron DeSantis, his first time when he ran for governor, he won by 10,000 votes. The next time, he won by 20% because he did just that. Now, people are going to say that's discrimination. No, it's not.
No.
It's basic controls. I want everyone to vote, have the day off, give them busing. Give them free IDs at the post office if you say you don't have an ID, and I don't even believe that because you need an ID for everything. Everything in life. You go to the hospital. Can I see your ID? You
Right.
open a bank account. Can I see your ID? You have an apartment. Can I see your ID? Everything requires an ID. Listen, it's basic. It's common sense. That's the first thing you do. And then let the people decide. Fair and square. That saves lives. That's what democracy is all about. And frankly, countries, historically speaking, who have gone down this rabbit hole have backed out of this rabbit hole. France is one of them, and they did this in the 70s. Look it up.
Well, let me tell you something. It is a hopeful sign. There was over 170 cases, suits that were filed in federal court. The DOJ was basically told to back off. I think it was Virginia was saying that non-citizens cannot vote. The DOJ went after the Supreme Court, ruled in favor of Virginia, ruled in favor of Georgia. Joe, I was so, as they say in Italian, I was so metabaudo over the last few months, like very moody, very back and forth. My mind was all about, I don't care about issues, because you're not addressing the right issue. You're not addressing election integrity. You're not doing it. Unless you do, Kamala and the rest of her horrid crew, they're going to steal the election. Okay? And you want to know what? Evidently, they all the suits, all the ground games. Scott Pressler in Pennsylvania delivered the Amish. He delivered the entire state. That kid worked tirelessly, okay, to get people registered and everything else. They were able to offset, but that is because of the dedication and hard work of a lot of people. But let's remember what happened in 2020, and that's why it can't just be Scott Pressler and a group of hardworking people that get out there. It's got to be in the law, in federal legislation.
On our side, Joe Biden never got 15 million votes, more votes than Barack Obama. Impossible. We didn't pick up net 12 House seats when we lost the presidential. Impossible. We didn't win 19 of the 20 bellwethers and lose the presidency. Impossible. You generated phony ballots of folks that don't exist, and that's why you ripped those envelopes and got them. If not, Rachel Maddow would be rubbing our nose and look at this thing, double it in the envelope. She's there. That's her signature. She's right there. Boom, right there, right there. No, in the dark of night, you did this. This is why Trump had to stand up at 11 o'clock at night and say, hey, guess what? I'm up 800,000 in Philadelphia, and we're now going to take down that fence. You ain't blocking us out because you're not going to do some count. Remember, the president came out because he was tapped along and by a lot of his staff and a lot of his legal people who just wanted to get the hell out of there and said, oh, yeah, everybody's going to stop counting. We're all going to stop counting. We're going to go home and get some sleep. And you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Hey, they continue to count everywhere. And guess what? You're now losing. Because they got to count it in the dark of night.
He said in that whole thing, and I'm going to throw it right back to you, Joe, Trump Joe, are you with me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Trump, more than anything else, I want to focus on one. Now, he was talking specifically about the election. And hey, Don, let's just go to sleep or wake up. No, I'm talking about just on a much broader level. Okay. Donald Trump needs to listen to no Republicans. None. Anybody who's got an R after their name who's been a Republican their whole life, I much prefer him listen to Bobby Kennedy Jr. I much prefer him listen to Elon Musk. I much prefer him listen to Vivek. I much prefer him listen to Tucker Carlson. I much prefer him. He's got to get it to his head that he's got to listen to people, but B, this time around, Donald, you have to listen to the right people. Listen to Joe and Joe. We'll come work in the White House. I tell you what, we got our finger on the pulse of things pretty good. I would never have advised you to go to sleep. You know why? Because the devil never sleeps. And the devil stole the election in 2020. I'm throwing it over to you, Joe.
If you look at the trend of the last 4 elections, including this one, you will see a fairly level vote for both the Republicans and the Democrats. I'm talking raw numbers, popular vote. If you look at the last election and you look at the votes that Joe Biden got in the last election, it's an anomaly. That's a trend of 4 elections. I used to be an auditor. Auditors look for trends. That's what's called an outlier. Now, if I was auditing that and I picked my sample, because that's what auditors do, they pick a sample. And if I said, give me the last 4 years of your election results, and I looked at that graph and I saw that outlier, that blue bar, which is an anomaly, what I would say is this is absolutely odd. I am going to focus in on that because it's outside the trend. And Bannon is discredited. A lot of people hear him, and that's why sometimes I try not to put people like that on the show. Not that I don't think he's smart, because I try to put it in the perspective of people who watch the show. They see someone like him, they think he's a lunatic, and he's a crazy dude. But at the same time, what he's saying is something you should consider. That was an outlier. And frankly, that can never happen again. And that is exactly why there has to be controls. That is exactly why. And again, I invite you to look at the results of the last 4 elections. It could not have happened that way.
Statistically impossible.
And here's another thing. People will say, whoa, it was legal, no judges. It was lawyered. They altered the law to make it legal before the election. And here's another reason why Trump won this time. They got better at what they did, the Democrats, the Republicans did. They went out to get people registered. More
Right.
Republicans registered than Democrats. They actually went to the streets and got people to register. That's what the Democrats did the last time. Also, the Republicans were better with the mail-in ballots than the Democrats. They beat them at their own game. There should be no game. This is an important thing. It's not a game. It's an election. There has to be controls. I just fixed it. I just told you the controls. It's simple. Ron DeSantis did it, and we can do it too. And that is number one, first priority.
Number one.
The election. And here's another thing. You don't like it? Here's the deal. I'm going to speak for me. I'm not going to rub it in people's faces. We need to unify the country, and I believe that has to stop. With that said, I am going to be blunt and clear and honest with every injustice, and we are going to correct that with charity, but with honesty. And we are going to be direct, and we're going to focus on problems which were not problems. They were created problems, like the border, which put stress on big cities, liberal cities, where liberal mayors have been speaking out against what the government did against our own people, allowing people who were not vetted for health during COVID and for security purposes. They were brought in for one reason and one reason only, for political power at the detriment of Americans and American cities. Don't believe me? Listen to Mayor Adams in New York, a liberal mayor. So this is what was done. Now, I'm not going to look to throw people in jail, while, to be honest with you, many of them should be in jail.
They deserve it, Joe.
With Mayorkas, and frankly, what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's regime did to this country, specifically speaking, at the border, how many people died? I'm talking about the migrants. How many women were raped? How many children were trafficked? Is a crime that will be paid for unless it's repented. But I don't want to digress, and I'm not going to play God, but it was a sin. At the end of the day, that has to be addressed, and there will be no apologies. There will be no explanations. Call me whatever you want.
Right.
Call me names, call me this, call me that, but I'm going to call it out. And that's exactly what has to be done. And
I'm
that's
with you.
exactly what has to be done also in the press. And if they're not on the board, too bad. We're doing it anyway.
If they continue down the path that they are, okay, if they're going to continue to call us garbage, which the jury's out, by the way, on whether or not Biden did that deliberately to undermine her. We don't know that. He would need some brain cells to do that, and I don't know how he is cognitively. But leaving that aside for a second, okay? If they continue, Joe, to go down this path, and they're going to call us garbage and fascists and Nazis simply for disagreeing with them, simply for wanting Trump's tariffs, simply for wanting a border wall, simply for wanting the tax code overhauled and these things, no foreign wars, really, really take a hatchet to the administrative state, to the deep state. If they're going to continue to call us names over that, which we know ultimately they call us names because of our position on abortion, but we're all part of that contemptible, deplorable group of Americans that they want to convince everybody that we are. If they continue to go down that road, they're going to alienate more and more people.
I agree.
Because people,
I agree.
listen, what people showed in this election is they have a propensity to say, regardless of the individual positions that they take, that they are willing to say, you know what, I might think I have more in common with you than Donald Trump, but you just called me a brother, Barack Obama. You said that I'm the problem in America because I don't want a knee-jerk vote for Kamala Harris, or Hispanic men who are now being called misogynistic. Al Sharpton's calling
I saw that too.
Hispanic men because
Black men as
Hispanic
well.
men, predominantly Catholic men, Hispanic men, 54% broke for Trump because they don't want to be called deplorable either. If they continue down this road, hey, listen, that's just going to strengthen not the uniparty, which is what we've had. That's going to strengthen this unity party. Now, I want to play you a clip, but I want to say one thing about this unity party, and it's something we could talk about on another show. I'm with you guys. I'm with you, Tulsi. I'm with you, Bobby Kennedy Jr. I'm with you all. But conservative Roman Catholics who are abortion abolitionists are better be welcome at that table. Those who are opposed to gay marriage and transgenderism better be welcome at that table. You want me to be part of your unity party? Well, remember something. That means you're bringing people together. That means if I'm not going to, I could compromise on a few things, but I'm not compromising on abortion, and you better not expect me to. And as long as we have a seat at that table and we're not brushed aside, okay, as being wackos because we're pro-life, like half the country's pro-life, then we'll see how it shakes out. But I do want to play you this clip because I'm having a hard time, Joe, interpreting it, and I need your help. So I'm going to play it.
For weeks. But it's possible that Donald Trump and the Republicans will have a trifecta as they did in 2016. In which case, the bulwark, against whatever overreach there could be and whatever those depredations might be, and I think you're going to have a tendency to overreach if they do, is the kind of thing that's democracy between elections, which is the work of civil society, it's the work of the fourth estate, it's the work of institutions, it's the work of citizens. All that's super important stuff.
Okay, all that super important stuff. Now, what I hear is this. He's signaling to the deep state In other words, the institutions, okay, which have been causing us all agita our entire lives, and the reason why Donald Trump is now the president of the United States again is he's saying basically, guys, you got to fight back against this. That's the way I interpret that. I could be
100%.
wrong.
And Joe, that's where regular people who call themselves Democrats should realize they're not for you. He says basically the democracy between the lines. What does that mean, sir? I'll
Right.
tell you what it means. That means ESG, meaning that all ESG is environmental social governance is the government teaming up with institutions to get around laws to put pressure on opposition. That's what that is. And that's what he's saying without saying it. And that's not part of the democracy that the founders put forth. What he just talked about is the anti American ideas
Right.
that he just didn't say it clearly. That is what wokeism is: pressure, extorting people, cornering people, forcing them to go along or they lose their job. That's what he's talking about.
That's right. That's exactly what
And
he's
that
talking
is
about.
not America.
Wall Street
That is
reform is
not
part of this.
America.
Joe Rossinello, Wall Street reform is part of all of this package with Donald Trump and who he puts in place to outlaw ESG. We need to tell BlackRock and the rest of them, say, look, you might have been dealing with the establishment Republicans, but you're dealing with MAGA now, MFR. Excuse my language. You know I wouldn't say it on the show. I'll just use, but you know where I'm going. Like kind of like a street thing. You grab Larry Fink. Larry, forget it. You're not going to extort. You're not going to extort companies, publicly traded companies who need money and say, well, we'll give you money, but we want 3 members of the board of directors and we're going to impose ESG. No. We're going to make that illegal, Larry.
You see,
And the
but
rest of
that's where Joe.
that would be a big step, Joe.
Joe, I would be so. I go into the streets cheering if I
Right.
saw that. You see, that's where people, what Joe Pasillo just outlined, that's why America is an oligarchy, where the country has been taken from us. When you see things like that, where BlackRock basically has $4 trillion assets under management, they control boards of companies and they pressure them. And then they pressure you. Here's another thing that has taken place across the globe. Remember what happened in Canada? We have a lot of Canadians in the chat room right now. They froze bank accounts.
Yep.
That is the type of thing that man is talking about.
Right.
And that is not democracy.
No.
You can protest in the street. That's fine. You don't hurt anybody. A protest, as Herschel Walker put it so brilliantly, I'll never forget it. A protest is from 9 to 5. You get a permit, you protest, and then at 5:01, you go home and you come back the next day. You break something, you go to jail. You hurt somebody, you go to jail. That's not the American way. And using institutions out of his own mouth to pressure people and get around the rule of law is not democracy.
Right.
And that should signal to people that America is no longer a democracy.
Joe, doesn't it show you how, by the way, that the left now is all in favor of these rather large institutions? By the way, I think BlackRock has more closer to $10 trillion
I believe you.
under assets. Okay, that it's amazing how the roles have flip-flopped. That one of the best insights, and it's not a shock. I mean, we saw that for the most part in Trump's first term. I think we're going to see it in his second term on steroids. Trump's a man of the working people. He wants what's good for the working people. The Republicans who are good Republicans who are going to support him feel the same way. Now, we still have to deal with the establishment types in the Republican Party, but they'll come along if they want to keep their positions. All right. We'll see what happens with them. But the left, all of a sudden, they're in favor of Wall Street, Joe. They're in favor of Larry Fink. They're in favor of BlackRock. They're in favor of the government being in bed with black companies to impose ESG. Why do you think now it's dawning on me? Why do you think so many companies went woke? They were pressured to. Gillette, all of a sudden, a few years ago, decides they're going to be woke and slap every man who ever used a Gillette product right in the face. Obviously, now I'm not saying they were or they weren't, but companies like that, and all of a sudden, an abrupt shift, and they've gone woke. Budweiser did it with Dylan Mulvaney, that little boy who thinks he's a girl, okay, who likes to threaten women online. They were pressured to do so.
You know what it is too, and I don't doubt that, because right now, if you have a Bloomberg machine, every single equity on Bloomberg has an ESG rating. That should tell you something right there. But also, and this is something I've picked up on LinkedIn, which is a system. It's basically, for those who don't know what LinkedIn is, it's basically posting your resume to connect with people, to search for jobs, to keep, active in the job market. And if you look at the chat in LinkedIn, a lot of these people make money. They're professional people, and depending what sector you're looking at, especially if it's banking, a lot of people make a lot of money. You see, they're out of touch with regular people. That's what Scott Jennings was trying to bring out to Van Jones and Axelrod. These are people that make a lot of money, and they're out of touch with the regular person who can't afford to buy food. Can't afford to buy food. And this is why, Joe, it's that, but it's also, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
And here's another thing, and they're not interested. Part of it is the echo chamber, and the other part of it is that's your problem. Because our country is no longer about regular people. And this is where the coalitions have to come into play. People have to figure out, for your own survival. It's for your survival, like a union. A union is to protect the worker against the corporation, which is the oligarchy. It's just on a smaller scale. You do it for your own self-preservation. This is what Americans have to figure out, because they are not on your side. And that man just said it. He said it. He says, we'll work around the system through the institutions.
No, that's the problem. That's what's being rebelled against.
No, but not enough people see that, though.
Well, good. That's why we're here at the front line with Joe and Joe.
That's right.
So we could have a conversation to point that BS out whenever we hear it, okay? Because the bottom line is, you're right. It's like, well, no, democracy between elections. Okay, no. Now I'm active. I'm triggered. See, they love the word triggered. I'm triggered now. I want to know what to do, what I could do on a local level. Maybe I'll call David Schweikert, who I believe retained his seat. Okay, maybe I'll call David Schweikert. So what can I do? What can I do for you to help you to put together some common sense legislation or support common sense legislation? Maybe I'll reach out to have him on the show. Okay, but I want to start getting this. I'm triggered now. All right, because democracy between the elections means I'm not in favor of what that guy was saying. Okay, I'm not in favor of the institutions. I want to wreck the institutions. I want Harvard to be defunded. I want all higher education to be defunded by the federal government. Do you know, Joe, that the estimate is that we could save, if Elon Musk has his way, the estimate is we could save $2 trillion off of our budget. That last year was $7 trillion, but ordinarily speaking is around $4.5 trillion. Do you know they're talking about, Joe, do you know how enormous that would be? I want to play, I'm not going to play it yet because we have a few minutes to talk about this. I want to throw it to you. This can be a very, being that we got the House and the Senate, okay? This can be a very transformative 4 years if Trump doesn't get killed, okay? And he's got to work tirelessly. I was telling a friend of mine, Joe, and I want your thoughts. Donald Trump, his life is over. He will only ever now be known as a president who had the greatest comeback in history. And what did he do in his second term? His life's over. Okay. This is the end of his life. This is his legacy. It's not The Apprentice. It's not the buildings. This is his life now. This is how he's going to be remembered by his family and by the country. Okay. He's got nothing else to prove in any single way. He can absolutely transform this country if he puts the right people in place. Don't listen to the establishment and be bold. And I, quite frankly, Joe, I'm not going to lie to you. I really think he's going to do that. I really do. I want your thoughts.
Joe, it could happen. It could happen. Um, Ultimately, there's a lot to do. A lot of it comes down to people seeing things for how they are and what they are. That's key. That really is. I mean, because ultimately it's 2 years. There's only so much you can do in 2 years. But I agree with you. He could do a lot. But if we want the country to thrive, it has to look beyond Donald Trump. And that has to come down to grassroots levels. The people have to vote for their own self preservation and their own interests. Your interests, not the interests of some ideologue who does not care about you, nor do they serve you. Nor do they serve you.
Joe, I
And
agree.
it shows itself in your checkbook. It shows itself in the fact that middle class people can't buy homes.
Joe, you got girls. You talk about a lost generation, which I'm not convinced they're lost, but there's many that represent the younger generation that are online. You got these girls that think they're rebelling against something. They're shaving their head, or they're saying we're not going to get married, we're not going to have sex,
Oh,
and this is it. You want to say, sweetheart, listen.
it's so
I know that's
sad.
misogynistic, I guess, to say sweetheart, but you want to say, sweetheart, listen, you're young and unfortunately you are uneducated. And I don't care where you went to school. You are not an educated person. Abortion is not the only issue, number one. Sexual liberation is not the only issue, number two. Okay. There are many, many other things in life. And if you're allowing yourself to be sucked into the Democrat propaganda because of abortion, then you have a mental issue that you're going to need to overcome. You need a lot of help because you're shaving your head, or you don't want to meet a good man and get married. All these forms of protest because of your precious effing right to kill your child. Is this a joke? And then you want me to take, Joe, these young people seriously?
Well, again, this is an issue of that person is wounded and that person is lost. You know, we have been blessed. I was raised in a house, there was love, there was stability, there was God. And frankly, that is the only reason why I'm here today, is because of that house. And a lot of people have not been given that. They don't even know what's right. And frankly, you could say, who are you to say that, Joe Rossinell? You tell a tree by the fruit it bears. Look at the lives of so many in America lost, taking medication just to function,
Yeah.
depressed, addicted, depressed, suicidal. This is bad fruit that has to be looked at in a sober and clear manner. And you're not going to legislate your way out of it. That's what has to get fixed. The
I'm with
family
you.
has to be encouraged. And frankly, God has to come back into the picture. God has to come back. I'm going to say it twice,
Yep.
but I can't force people to do that. And this is what my invitation to Catholics, and there are many of them. I see them on social media. You want to make a difference. I know you do, as I do. You have to do the hard work. And the hard work is to reform yourself. And we do that through fasting, through living a sacrificial life, and through prayer daily and the sacraments. And if you do that, you will transform yourself and you will transform the world around you. And that is how you reach that girl who shaved her head, because you're not going to tell her anything.
Nah, she
And
won't want to hear it.
and this is how Americans and Catholics can make a difference. And Catholics have made a difference that way throughout the centuries. We have to give the example. America needs witnesses. That girl did not have one. I'll guarantee it. If
Right.
she sees one, she'll see herself as God sees her, a child of God who is loved, but someone who is wounded.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only way it's going to get fixed, from
Well,
that
listen,
front. And that's the
on that
truth,
front,
Joe.
On that front, I'm going to agree with you. Joe, we're going to wrap it up. We want to thank you. Want to stick around. We have a clip we're going to send you out with that you'll want to see. But we want to thank you all for joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe, 9 o'clock Eastern time on Thursday nights. Next week, we'll probably get into maybe a little bit more about we're going to follow the Trump situation on every level. But primarily, we want to see what he's going to do as far as people and ideas, what ideas he's going to take. What he's going to discard, maybe how he's going to go after the establishment. We're going to keep our finger on the pulse of everything going on out there, but all things, particularly Donald Trump. So we encourage you to please let everybody know about Joe and Joe. Like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. Help us out, particularly on X and Rumble. Share our videos. Like our videos, subscribe or follow, whatever the case may be. Thank you, as always, for joining us. We had a full room tonight, comment box tonight. We had over 70 many times throughout the hour, so we really appreciate that. Thanks again. Stick around for the video, and remember, until next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.
We took a wrong turn and lost our purpose. We lost the strength that makes Americans who we are. If we dared to speak the truth, it was called hate speech, and our values were labeled shameful. That's when everything we care about fell apart. We surrendered our borders, our paychecks, and our courage. Our patriotism was called toxic. Men could beat up women and win medals, but there was no prize for the guy who got up every day to do his job. Now we're being asked to settle for the way things are. And we're wondering if America can make a comeback. We can. Because we've done it before. When we get knocked down, we don't stay down. We get up again. We fight.